Chosen woman, you who listen to me now know well the weight of carrying a heart wounded by silence. It's not just any silence, it's the one that screams inside the soul, that settles in the relationship, and suffocates more than any argument. You look to the side and realize that the distance is not just in the bodies, but in the emotions. The look that once sought you with tenderness, now passes by you as if it didn't see you. The affection that was once natural, now seems distant, almost forgotten. And suddenly you realize that the love that seemed eternal today finds itself covered by a deafening silence. This silence is not empty. It is full of pain, of unanswered questions, of frustrated hopes. It manifests when you try to start a conversation and receive only short phrases. When you extend your hand and don't find the same response. When you enter the room and feel that the presence of your loved one no longer warms, but chills. It envelopes you in doubts, makes you question your worth, your dedication, your story. And the wound becomes even greater because the heart cries out for attention, but doesn't receive even a whisper. Chosen woman, don't think that God doesn't see your tears. He knows the nights when you cry in silence so as not to worry anyone. He hears the requests you make quietly, when you ask for strength not to give up. The silence in your relationship is not only human, it is also spiritual. There is an invisible battle behind this emptiness, because what God planted in your life has value, has purpose, has destiny. And the enemy tries to use this silence as a weapon to convince you that it's over, that you were rejected, that there is no more future. But listen with faith, it is exactly in the silence that God works with the most intensity. While you feel absence, He is present. While you believe that nothing happens, He is moving pieces that you don't see. He is preparing something greater than you can imagine. The silence that hurts today will be the same silence that will witness the miracle of love's rebirth. Because God does not abandon the chosen woman. And you, who are listening to this message now, are living proof that He still has restoration plans for your story. Don't allow silence to erase your hope. It is not the end, but the beginning of a transformation process. What seems empty is, in reality, the fertile ground where God plants the new beginning. Each of your tears is an invisible watering of this seed. Each prayer, even when made with a choked voice, is fuel for the miracle to manifest. You feel that love has disappeared, but in reality it was only hidden by hurts, by wounds, by neglect. True love doesn't die, because what God unites has eternal purpose. It may be covered, it may be suffocated, but it will never be destroyed. And no matter how much silence screams, God's voice is stronger. Chosen woman, prepare your heart. The emptiness that hurts today will be the same place where you will see restoration begin to flourish. Because while you think you are alone, Heaven is already writing a new chapter for your love life. Chosen woman, while you cry for the silence that has taken over your relationship, know that there is something much greater happening beyond what your eyes can see. It's not just about you and him, it's not just about disagreements or accumulated hurts. There is an invisible, spiritual battle being fought inside and outside the heart. A war that tries to steal your peace, extinguish your faith, and destroy the love that God planted in your life. The enemy knows your pains, knows your weaknesses, and tries to use every detail to convince you that it's over. He whispers in your mind that you are no longer desired, that you are no longer enough, that there is no more reason to fight. He casts thoughts of giving up, trying to make you abandon what still has purpose. It's as if a voice repeated endlessly, "There is no more hope, there is no going back." And in the midst of this inner war, you feel tired, as if you were fighting alone against something you cannot win. But listen carefully, you are not alone. This invisible battle is not won by the strength of arms, but by the strength of faith. While the enemy tries to extinguish your hope, God raises angels around you. He covers you with His protection, guards your heart, strengthens your soul. And what seemed lost begins to be kept in heaven, far from the reach of any destruction. Chosen woman, true love may even be suffocated by hurts and mistakes, but it cannot be destroyed. Because when the Lord plants something, He cares for it. What He unites has purpose. What He blesses remains. And even though the eyes show distance, even though the heart feels pain, know that this fight is not only yours. Heaven is in motion to defend what was sown by God in your life. This invisible war is reflected in small things, in the silence, in the words that don't come, in the distance that grows. But behind every detail there is a spiritual dispute between lies and truth, between giving up and perseverance, between destruction and restoration. And in this scenario, you need to choose who to believe. Don't listen to the voices that say it's over. Listen to God's voice that calls you by name and says, "There is still hope, there is still life, there is still love." It's not easy to remain firm when everything seems contrary. The heart desires quick answers, the mind seeks immediate signs. But in this battle, victory comes through trust in God. And it is at this point that you become a warrior, not because you have all the strength, but because you surrender your weaknesses into His hands. The enemy may try to weaken you, but with each tear, each prayer, you become stronger, because you don't fight alone. Chosen woman, this invisible battle is already being won in the spiritual world. What you see as silence, God is already transforming into strategy. What seems like absence, He is already converting into care. While you suffer, the Lord works. While you wait, He prepares. The enemy may try, but cannot overcome what belongs to God. And it is in this battlefield, in this space of pain and uncertainty, that the next step begins to be born. Because after the battle, the sign always comes. And when God decides to breathe life upon something, no one can stop it. Chosen woman, after the dark night of the invisible battle, something begins to move in an almost imperceptible way. You may not notice immediately, but heaven is already breathing life upon what seemed lost. The relationship that seemed suffocated by silence and hurts begins to give small signs that it was not destroyed. These signs don't emerge grandly at first, but come as subtle touches, like seeds that sprout discreetly in the earth before becoming strong trees. You notice it in details. A look that was once cold now lingers a little longer on you. A word that seemed impossible to hear suddenly appears in a conversation. A simple gesture that once seemed dead reappears with inexplicable force. It is in these small movements that God reveals that His promise is being fulfilled. What seemed extinguished is being rekindled by the divine flame of love. Chosen woman, these signs are like breaths of life sent by the Spirit Himself. They don't happen by chance, they are not mere isolated moments. They are marks that God is restoring what the enemy tried to destroy. He doesn't just rebuild, He resurrects. And when He decides to resurrect, there is no past, no pain, no failure that can prevent the power of restoration. These signs are invitations for you to believe again. Because faith needs fuel, and God, in His goodness, places before you indications that He is acting. It's not just about observing the other, but also about perceiving the changes within you. The patience you didn't have before, the self-control that begins to flourish, the ability to forgive that seemed impossible. These are signs that the miracle doesn't begin from outside to inside, but from inside to outside. And in this process, the love that seemed dead rises up. Not with the same form as before, but renewed, more mature, stronger. Because God doesn't return anything the same way. He transforms, He purifies, He prepares something even better than what you lived in the past. And each gesture, each word, each look, is like a sign of the resurrection that He has already decreed over your love life. Chosen woman, know that these signs are not just coincidences. They are answers to your tears, to your prayers, to your silent cry. They are like the dawn after the dark night, like a ray of light piercing through the densest clouds. And the more you recognize these signs, the more your faith is strengthened. Because it's not about how much you see, but about how much you trust. You don't need to despair trying to accelerate the process. Just keep your eyes on the Lord and allow each small sign to be a reminder that the miracle is in progress. What seemed buried is already sprouting. What seemed dead is already breathing again. And the love that you once thought you had lost forever is resurging before your eyes. And when this breath of life begins to grow, you will see that it wasn't just the relationship that God restored, but also your identity, your strength, your confidence. Because for love to resurrect, He first needs to heal the wounded heart. Chosen woman, for love to truly resurrect, external signs alone are not enough. God, in His wisdom, always begins from the inside out. Before restoring the relationship, He decides to restore you. Because a wounded heart, full of hurts and scars, cannot sustain the new life that He is preparing. It's like trying to plant flowers in hardened soil. Beauty may even sprout for an instant, but is soon lost if the root doesn't find space to grow. And perhaps you have already felt this: the difficulty of trusting again, the fear of giving yourself once more, the insecurity that steals peace even in the face of signs of change. That's why the Lord first touches your deepest wounds. He begins to remove, with patience and love, the marks of abandonment, the pains of rejection, the traumas of words that still echo in your mind. God doesn't just erase memories, He transforms scars into testimonies. He takes what broke you and uses it as part of your strength. Chosen woman, this healing process can hurt. Because sometimes, to clean a wound, you need to touch where it hurts. You need to bring to the surface memories you would rather forget. But know this: each tear that falls during this healing is a drop of liberation. Each time you choose to release forgiveness, even when it doesn't seem fair, you are making space for the Holy Spirit to rebuild within you a heart free to love. And in this process, God also reminds you of who you are. He restores your self-esteem, reminds you that you are a beloved daughter, that you have non-negotiable value, that you don't depend on anyone's approval to exist in fullness. You were not created to live begging for affection, but to overflow with love, because you are already loved by the greatest of all loves. When this truth begins to fill your heart, you realize that you are no longer the same woman who entered this desert. You rise stronger, more confident, more whole. The healing of the heart is fundamental because only those who are healed can love again without carrying invisible chains. Without throwing the weight of old pains onto the other. Without transforming the present into a reflection of past hurts. God knows that the reunion will not be complete if you are still trapped by wounds. That's why He works inside you before acting completely on the other. Because true restoration is not just of the relationship, but of the being. Chosen woman, notice how the Lord is already shaping you. He teaches you to wait with patience, to trust even without understanding, to value who you are before Him. And in this process, you learn that it's not just your relationship that will be restored, but your entire life. The pain that seemed unbearable becomes strength. The silence that suffocated you now becomes space to hear God's voice. The loneliness that saddened you now becomes a place of intimacy with the Creator. And when healing begins to flourish, you notice something wonderful. You are no longer a prisoner of the past. You no longer depend on the other's confirmation to feel loved. You understand that the reunion, when it happens, will not be between two broken people trying to complete each other, but between two healed hearts, prepared to live the purpose that God has already written. Chosen woman, keep this. The healing of the heart is the key that opens the doors to the miracle of reunion. The Lord is preparing you, because He knows that what is to come will be greater than everything you have lived up to now. Chosen woman, after the silence that wounded you, the invisible battle that almost made you give up, the signs of resurrection that rekindled your faith, and the healing that restored your heart, comes the time that seemed impossible, the miracle of reunion. It's not just a reunion of bodies, it's not just the return of two people who were distant. It's something much greater. It's the reunion of souls, of purposes, of hearts that were polished by the fire of trial and now find themselves strengthened by God's grace. You realize that this reunion doesn't happen by the force of your efforts, but by the Lord's perfect timing. It's not the fruit of human insistence, but of divine intervention. Suddenly, the one who seemed distant draws near. Words once trapped in hurts now flow with sincerity. The embrace you so desired becomes reality. And in this instant you understand, it wasn't the lost time that defined your story, it was the promise that God kept standing, even when everything seemed to crumble. Chosen woman, this reunion is different because it's not born from neediness, but from healing. You no longer look at the other as someone who needs to complete you, but as someone who adds to what God has already restored in you. The love that is reborn is more mature, more conscious, stronger. It's not sustained only by emotion, but by faith, by patience, and by the certainty that there is a greater purpose in being together. The miracle of reunion is also testimony. Because those who saw your pain, those who thought it was over, now witness the power of restoration. Your life becomes living proof that when God is at the center, nothing can be destroyed. What seemed dead comes back to life, and not only returns, but comes back multiplied in intensity. This reunion is more than personal, it's spiritual. It's the fulfillment of the promise, it's the answer to your prayers, it's the materialization of the Father's care. And in this moment, you understand that each tear had meaning, each weight had purpose, each prayer had an answer. The reunion is not just a gift for your heart, but also a lesson of faith. God shows that He never abandoned you, that He was always by your side, that He fought for you when you no longer had strength. And now, He returns not just love, but the certainty that His will is perfect and pleasing. Chosen woman, the love that seemed lost didn't just resurge, but was renewed before everyone's eyes. The reunion you waited for so long is proof that God never forgets a daughter who trusts in Him. And now you carry with you the mission to live this love as testimony, to honor each gesture, each word, each instant, knowing that none of this came by chance. The miracle of reunion is not the end of your journey, but the beginning of a new story. A story marked by faith, by restoration, and by the certainty that, when everything seemed lost, God was already preparing the most beautiful chapter of your life. Chosen woman, now that you have traveled this journey with me, I need to ask you, how many times did you allow silence to convince you that love was over? How many times did you believe the voices that said there was no more hope, when in truth God was already preparing the reunion? And more, are you willing to care for your heart first, allowing Him to heal your wounds so you can then live the restored love that the Lord has already decreed over your life? This word didn't reach you by chance. If it touched your heart, it's because there is a purpose. So, don't keep it just to yourself. Share this message, declare with faith that your relationship is being restored, and allow other women to also be reached by the same hope. And before leaving this video, I want to make you an invitation. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and follow each new message. Because with each word revealed here, the Lord will strengthen your faith, your hope, and your heart even more. Chosen woman, always remember, the love that seemed lost is already resurging in your life.